What's going on, family? Marv, onerep@a-time.net. This is the 4th video of our nutrition hierarchy series. So that means if you're watching this video, you've been granted access. Therefore, you either bought the book or are working with us. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you. I take it very, very seriously that you put your hard-earned money down. So I'm looking forward to help you on your nutrition and then your fitness and health goals along the way. So this is going to be the first of several advanced techniques, just like the book says. If you don't have the big 3 in order, worrying about these advanced techniques is going to mistake the forest for the trees. You're trying to, you're already having a hard time juggling 3 balls in the air. Why are we going to try and add a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, or a 7th? So what we recommend is to pick one advanced technique at a time, learn that, master that, right? Practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. Be consistent with it and then move on. So I'd only recommend that you add one advanced technique at a time. Today is fasting. If you notice, it will be the only one in red, and it's the only one that's going to get several stars on the board. So first and foremost, let me clearly state right now, if you're somebody who has an eating disorder in your past, specifically anorexia, you are not to do fasting. I am not kidding about this. If you're somebody who has that in your past, you are to skip this altogether. I don't care about the health benefits. You are not to do fasting. Similarly, if you are somebody who has adrenal fatigue, otherwise known as HPA dysfunction, I would not recommend fasting as well. You already have an issue with cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone, and thyroid issues. So fasting will simply compound that, so you're not to do it as well. Now, it's nowhere near as stressed as somebody with an eating disorder, but I would discourage you from fasting if you fall in that camp. And then we're gonna make this distinction. You're gonna hear it a million times in this video, and you're gonna read it a million times in the book. We are not doing fasting for weight loss or fat loss. We're doing it for the health benefits, first and foremost, as well as these amazing, emotional, mental, learning process. So there's amazing mental benefits as well, as far as learning about what true craving is and what true hunger is, as well as the conditioned hunger we've pretty much been, it's been forced down to us our entire lives by the food industry, so we have conditioned hunger. So we'll break, both of those things down. That is one of the main things that I love fasting about. It totally is an eye-opener. So fasting. We're fasting like our ancestors did. When you think about it, our ancestors didn't eat the same 3 to 5 meals, the same 2,000 to 3,000 calories every single day, constantly having food. So it kind of makes sense, right? If we're constantly pounding our body with food, which we didn't, have back in the day, there's going to be health issues. So fasting is getting a lot of popularity. Finally, a bunch of human trials are being done, which is awesome. It was really big in Europe, where they actually still have clinics where people will do multiple month-long fasts, and they're like reversing severe autoimmune issues. It's pretty spectacular. But obviously, those are very clearly, and carefully medically supervised. Speaking of which, obviously there's a disclaimer in the book that everything is for entertainment, educational purposes only. If you are going to fast, clear it with your doctor first, especially if you're taking medications. It is very important to do so. Medications totally change the name of the game. So what are the health benefits of fasting? There's a many. First and foremost, it's going to help with insulin sensitivity, which we harp on time and time again because we have this overconsumption of carbohydrates, overconsumption of sugars. Insulin sensitivity is a big issue. There's a lot of health issues tied to sugar, which we talked about. We don't necessarily need to demonize it, but if you're over-consuming it or consuming it on a daily, frequent basis, it's not a good idea. So it helps with insulin sensitivity, helps with gut health, helps with overall inflammation. Believe it or not, it will not slow down your metabolism, so long as you have calories in order, which is on the top of the list, more often than not. Fasting will not slow down your metabolism. Actually, in the short term, it will speed up your metabolism, which is pretty spectacular. Fasting is also great for, I need to carefully put this, it is been suggested it is anti-cancer, so that's pretty awesome as well. And then, like I said, there's major mental benefits as far as what a true craving is versus true hunger. There's a big difference, and odds are you've never actually been truly hungry. And then as well as conditioned hunger. So there will be more lists of health benefits in the book, but those are the main ones we do it. Again, you're gonna get sick of me saying this and reading this. We are not doing fasting for weight loss or fat loss. We're doing fasting for the mental benefits and the overall health benefits. Now, there is papers out there which we reference that they don't believe that if somebody implements fasting that they will develop an eating disorder if it's not one in their past. But I'm going to make the distinction. If you start to associate fasting with weight loss, that is a very slippery slope. And if you're fasting constantly, which we never recommend you fast on a daily basis, if you're fasting constantly, It is anorexia. So we're doing it for health, we're doing it for mental. So let's go to these mental benefits now that we've kind of talked about the physical. First and foremost, it will teach you the difference between a craving and what true hunger is. Odds are you've never truly been hungry, okay? Trust me when I say that. I know you've been like, oh, I'm starving to death, or I have low blood sugar. No. But you do have a craving. So what is a craving and what is true hunger? So here's an example. You're with your friends and your friends, you're like, I could go for some food. So your friend says, well, what about some pizza? No, that doesn't sound good. What about Indian food? No, I'm not in the mood for that. Those might be the things that you will say. And then if they, say, well, what about a cheeseburger? Yes, that sounds amazing. Let's go get a cheeseburger. That is a craving. Cravings are temporary and fleeting. Hunger is when anything that's on the table sounds good. Okay, and unless you've gone 24 to 48 hours with actually not eating any food whatsoever, you've never truly been hungry. So, craving and hunger, it is eye-opening to know the difference. Next is conditioned hunger. So I'll just write conditioned underneath. Conditioned hunger, we can thank the food industry for. So do you know of the whole, Pavlov's dogs, where you could condition dogs to, the mouths will start watering at the sound of a bell despite getting electric shock? Same thing. Do you ever think about why why do we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, dessert, and fourth meal, heaven forbid you like Taco Bell? Why are there certain breakfast foods? Why are there certain lunch foods, certain dinner foods, right? We've been conditioned by the food industry, which is brilliant on their part, that we have to eat at a certain time, we can only have certain food. So the example is this. Say it's 6:30 in the evening and you have tracked your food that day and you are way over in your calories. You have overconsumed. But it's 6:30 when you normally have dinner. And all of a sudden you're getting hungry. Even though you've overconsumed, you shouldn't be hungry. You get hungry because you've been conditioned that it is dinner time. Conditioned hunger was an eye-opener for me and for our clients. Now, I'm somebody who overconsumed in the past, so fasting is a big change for me. If you're somebody who's eaten sporadically, you're a small eater, I would not implement fasting, right? We need to do the opposite. So for me and folks who have overconsumed or they have blood sugar issues, which is what fasting is crucial for, so long as you clear it with your doctor, fasting does some amazing things. I know it was eye-opening for me when I actually went the first 12 hours and I didn't pass out or anything. Now you may experience lightheadedness, you may experience headaches, so be sure you are drinking your water. If you recall, trumps fasting or anything down on the list. You can drink tea, you can drink black coffee, don't add any cream or sugar. Technically you can have some fat, so if you want to have a couple teaspoons of those heart healthy mono and polyunsaturated fats such as extra virgin olive oil, which I'm going to be honest, not really a fan of anymore just because it is so faked. Avocado oil, macadamia nut oil, or your fish oils, you could absolutely have those throughout the day, just in small amounts. But you don't want to have any meaningful calories from carbohydrate or protein because it is the insulin response to amino acids or carbohydrates that will break a fast. So when it comes to fasting, there is something known as what I'm sure you've heard of by now is intermittent fasting. So I'm going to write it IF, and then full fast, which is, they're exactly what they sound like. So let's go over intermittent fasting first. So that is the one that's really popular. Again, there's nothing magical about them, but if you think about it, if you're not tracking your calories and you're shortening your feeding window, odds are you might consume less food. So that's where that, wives' tale of don't eat after 9 p.m. it turns into fat is so magical. Well, if you're not tracking your food and you cut yourself off at evening time, especially when we're most prone to have, our sweet tooth kind of surface up, you're going to be eating less calories, and then all of a sudden it seems magical. And if you eat those foods late at night, you're not tracking, so you have no idea what your calories are, you have no idea what protein, and you're definitely not worried about fiber. You're going to overconsume, and that's going to lead to that caloric balance of being in a surplus, and that's why you gain weight. So intermittent fasting is where you have the two most popular protocols is the Lean Gains, which is brilliant marketing, and the Warrior Diet. Both of them were created by bodybuilders. So Lean Gains is a 16-hour fast, 8-hour feeding window. The Warrior Diet is 20-hour fast, 4-hour feeding window. I would say that there's no such thing as anabolic fasting. That's a bunch of marketing hoopla. Fasting is catabolic, meaning it's tissue breakdown by nature. Now, it does a great job of preserving muscle because the longer you go into the fast, your cortisol levels will rise, your adrenaline levels will rise, and your growth hormone levels will rise. So there's a pretty significant rise in growth hormone as well the longer you go into a fast. But intermittent fasting is, one of those two protocols. They are great to be thrown in sporadically. Keyword is intermittent. I really wouldn't suggest anybody do that on a daily basis, because guess what? That stimulus is gonna be the same. Your body's going to adapt. As far as when to implement your feeding window, typically what I tell folks, especially the first times you tried it, because going 16 or more hours your first time you fast can be difficult. So like I struggled big time. It took a lot of effort to get to 12 hours for me, but I've had people make 24, 36 hours their very first attempt. Lord knows I tried and failed, so my hat goes off to them. But what you can do is think about it. You're fasting when you're sleeping. Hopefully the name is breakfast, break, fast. And regardless of what time you eat it, your first meal of the day is technically breakfast. Now I have had a couple people who have legitimate like sleep eating disorders where they're literally like sleepwalking and eating. But hopefully you don't fall into that camp. That is very rare. So guess what? Your fast started when you're sleeping, and you just put off your first meal of the day as long as you can. I would suggest starting on like a weekend or a day where you don't have a lot of responsibilities, because you want to see how your body responds. Once you've adapted or how your body responds, I shouldn't say I encourage. Personally, I fast when I have something I need to be sharp for. So for instance, I'm fasted right now. I haven't eaten in 15 and a half hours, right? And around the 16-hour mark, man, the mental clarity you get from a fast is simply phenomenal. So when you need to be sharp, fasting is a good idea. We don't want to be doing it all the time. I would suggest you get like a bunch of activity in during your fasting window. So with intermittent fasting, just play around with it, see how you respond. Once you get the hang of it, then you could kind of strategically put it in. Now, full fast, I'm sure that's what people want to know, because like you're purposely withholding food for an extended period of time. Yes, so if you're telling somebody you're not eating that day, be prepared to have a look of shock, or they just assume it's for religious purposes, which, fasting is a crucial part in a lot of religions that have been around for a very long time. Makes kind of sense, So, full fast, 24 to 72 hours. Anything over that, I would suggest you be medically supervised by a doctor. Now, obviously, you need to clear it before you attempt this. But full fast can be a little more challenging, but they are awesome. So just personally, on a personal anecdote, 12 hours, don't even have to think about. I typically prefer to fast 12 hours, wake up, let cortisol do its thing, let it wake me up, and then consume food. Or 16, 18 hours is no problem whatsoever. 20 hours, no issue. 24 hours, I have to put a little more effort into it. What I like to do is say so last night, my last meal of the day was 9 p.m. Okay, so if I want to do a 24-hour fast, I would wait until 9 p.m. the next day to eat my food. So you get a 24-hour time stretch in, but you're not going to sleep fasted, because personally I struggle with fasts. I love to implement Thai fasts into one of these later items down here, which we will talk about, so it's a double whammy. So that's the easiest way to do a 24-hour fast. Now research is showing that potentially after 72 hours our immune system is completely recycled, brand new, which is pretty amazing. But again, it can be kind of hard when you do break a fast, especially that's been longer than an intermittent fasting protocol, but around 24, potentially 48 hours. I suggest you do so with a cup of organic bone broth, maybe 1 to 3 cups. It's really easy on the stomach, ease your way into it. And I wouldn't break it with like a super processed meal. You want it, wholesome, single ingredient, quality foods when you break your fast. And when it comes to fasting, I do need to make very clear that for anybody, I wouldn't do it all the time. Personally, when I combined intermittent fast with full fast in the same week, I simply dropped too much weight. Even though I wasn't doing it for the weight loss, I was doing it to kind of manipulate my intake and play with it and see how I respond, because it was such a drastic change. If you do them in the same week, I believe it's too much. So either you do a full fast every 7 to 14 days for 24 to 48 hours, typically is pretty doable by the general population. Or you could do like an intermittent fast 1, 2, 3 days a week, just to constantly change it up. Now this isn't in the book, but along the lines of changing it up. If you're somebody who's always skipped breakfast, well, maybe what might be beneficial to you is to force yourself to eat breakfast for a period of time till you adjust. Cut yourself off at say 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. and then that's your fasting window. So do the exact opposite of what your body is used to. Just food for thought. Fasting is a stressor on the body. While it is a good stress, it is a stressor on the body. So women, if they fast too often, can actually lose their ability to menstruate and become infertile. So fasting and just caloric restriction in general and changes tend to impact women more than men. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's, that's a negative thing. Actually, it shows that your bodies adapt to, your intake a lot quicker than men. Your body's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, which is metabolically adapting to whatever stimulus you're giving it. It's that way you could survive, because you need to procreate. We don't have to. You need to. So there's a difference with that. Again, your metabolism will not slow down if you're not fasting every single day and you're not eating paltry calories. Short term, it may actually speed up your metabolism, but it has to be infrequent. So I would do one or the other. Fasting, which we'll outline in the book, actually, believe it or not, is phenomenal when you're trying to build muscle. Now, there's no such thing as anabolic fasting, but that break from food can help resensitize your body to calories and, carbohydrates and protein, because if you're in a bulk, you are consuming surplus calories. So again, it's a drastic change for your body. It's really good for digestion issues. And what's awesome, which is why it might be anti-cancer, is around 12 hours, it increases autophagy, which is the programmed destruction of old cells that might have become weak and their DNA might have been compromised, so they might be susceptible to that. So that's another awesome benefit. So around 12 hours, and that's fasting. So it is a big change of pace, especially for a lot of folks. If you're somebody who's a bird eater, right, nitpicky, eats very infrequently to begin with, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're somebody who's overconsumed, has blood sugar issues, potentially has some gut health issues, fasting is amazing. And I love, the biggest thing that I'm a fan of is this craving versus hunger and conditioned hunger response of breaking the cycle. So that ends our section on fasting. I'm gonna say it one more time. If you have an eating disorder in your past, no. If you have HPA dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, no. And we're not doing it for weight loss or fat loss. We're doing it for the health benefits and the mental gains, and just flat out throwing a huge curveball, because we as a society overconsume and we have food readily available to us. So it can be an eye-opening experience. So I hope this made sense. I ask that you like this video. If you learned something, comment below if you have any questions. You can email me. Most likely we will be in contact, if you're a client of whatever we talk once a week on the phone, via text message, through emails throughout the week, in addition to that phone call, whatever we decided on. Ask me any questions. Watch this video, obviously read the book, watch the big 3, but I do ask that you do not share these videos with anybody. This is our proprietary information, and you spent the money, right? You spent your hard-earned money, so I ask that you and I respect that. So I ask that you respect me and not share these videos, as I want to keep them private for our clients. So that is fasting. We can do anything we want, one day at a time, one meal at a time, one set at a time, one rep at a time, one fast at a time. This is Marv, onerepatime.net. Thanks, family. See you in the next video.